Good morning, everybody. Mr. Kess here with some ethical ground rules. The do's and don'ts for high schoolers. Now, obviously, you guys are not professional researchers. You're not going to college to major in something yet. So there are some things we need to go over that only apply to high schoolers, not general research to begin with. So here's the idea of this. We need to establish what is considered off limits for high schoolers. Something that you guys may not realize is biased data is unethical. And then lastly, to protect yourself, especially when you do a topic that can be on the line. You want to make sure that you're doing it in a way that's going to protect you. So let's start off with establishing off-limit topics because this is kind of a big one. Technically, no topic is considered off limits for AP research. They want you to have the freedom to do anything you want. However, you need to realize what exactly doing your research is going to do to you, the school, someone else, etc. So when you obviously write your AP paper, you are submitting it nowhere saying North Brunswick Township High School. Like that's something you did in seminar. You never put your name on it like that. However, realize that let's say you talk about a school in Middlesex County, New Jersey. There's only, 20-something schools that can be. So we need to make sure that when we're actually doing our research, that we are considering our effects on things. So here's an example where things are kind of off topic. You want to investigate recreational marijuana use. I've used this example before about recreational marijuana. It's a fascinating AP research topic. There's so many nuances about it between medical reasons and recreational reasons, and athletes shouldn't be allowed to use it, and athletes who have been barred from it, students getting drug tested in schools, people not getting a job because of marijuana. There's so many different avenues you could talk about marijuana. I'm going to give you two examples here that are no-nos for what we do. So you know a friend or two that you can call to get you some samples of marijuana. So obviously you folks are high schoolers. You might know someone who's actually dealing. I can't let you guys go to a dealer, buy weed, and experiment with the different weeds. I just can't do that. And I hope that you understand why, as a teacher, I cannot condone you folks doing that. Number one, because recreational marijuana use for kids under 18 is illegal at this point. So most of you kids legally can't do it anyway. But then you're telling me that you know someone that's selling marijuana. And I don't want to have to call the cops on you because you're telling me that you know someone who can sell you marijuana. So just be careful about that. Another example here is you want to talk about police mentality about recreational marijuana because, once again, it's becoming more and more standard nowadays for people to have it. So you go to the local police station and ask an officer how often they let someone go without offense when weed is discovered on their possession. So let's just say they have they're pulled over for reckless driving. The cop does the search and finds a joint in the car. So does the cop issue a ticket anyway? But then is he also going to issue a ticket for the joint, which really has nothing to do with you being a reckless driver? It's just the usage of the joint. Is the cop going to oversee that or is he not? You cannot go to the local police station and ask the officer that question because there's just so many things about that can open up Pandora's box. So as a high school teacher, I cannot for the life of me let you guys do something like that. But there are ways to kind of walk that line. And I encourage you folks to walk that line. I hope you have the confidence to walk that line. It can be a little scary. So here's an example on how we can walk that line. You ask random people at the mall, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the most, how would you rate your knowledge of different marijuana strains? Okay, so here's a few things going on. When you incorporate a scale instead of a yes or a no. How do you feel about something? How comfortable are you? It acknowledges that people don't necessarily have to be smoking weed to know about weed. For example, I don't smoke marijuana, but I've seen a lot of movies with people that smoke marijuana. So if I was asked this random question at a mall, I would probably say a 3 or a 4 because I have a good idea about all the different strands. I know some marijuana messes with your head, some marijuana messes with your body. I don't smoke, but I've seen a lot of things about it. So I would answer pretty confidently. And being in school, I'm recording myself. I can tell you, yes, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the most, I would say I'm somewhere between a 3 and a 4. And that's okay because you're asking the question in such a way where someone is not going to get in trouble for asking that. Also, you understand by asking a question like this, there is a natural ability to lie. Okay? You have to understand that when you ask people a question like this. Maybe you randomly go to the mall and you see your friend there who you know sells weed. Coincidentally, you ask them this question. They can play dumb and say a 1. They can play obvious and say, yeah, I know a lot about weed. I'm going to say a 5. Okay, great. That's it. Then you walk away. You got your data. So in that kind of instance, you can still get information, but you're doing so in such a way that is not going to put you in a situation where we're going to have to get other people involved. So here's the rule of thumb that I would like you guys to think about. So is your topic illegal? So let's just say, for example, an illegal one, school shootings. Obviously, shooting people is illegal. So are you going to talk, what about school shootings? Are you going to talk about how can you bring the subject up without red flags? Will your research ruin someone's reputation or career? If you ask me, Mr. Kess, I'm doing your research. When you were a child, when you were my age, did you do underage drinking? What do I say to that? If I say yes to that, then you're just going to make me like I'm done. Like, why would I answer that question? If I say no, obviously, then you're going to say I say no. But if I say yes, then what? Yeah, you're just ruining someone's career in that regard. So we don't want to put them in a position where they can say yes or no. Now that question is really obvious, okay? But let's just say you talk about something, almost like a cancel culture, where you ask me something about my childhood and I say yes, and all of a sudden, because of how things are today, it comes out that I'm canceled and I can lose my job because I'm put in a situation where I said yes to a question for you. So we just have to be really mindful about that kind of stuff. And then lastly, will your questioning put you in a situation where you know something negative can happen? If you ask your friend about buying marijuana from them and you put that in your paper, I'm going to be contacting the local police after talking to Mr. Neller. So please just don't put yourself in a position where I'm going to have to report you for doing something illegal. So here's our first question, and you can go ahead and pause the video. Is there any concern about the nature of your research as it might be deemed off limits? And understand, because we're just doing the planning purposes, it's okay to have a topic that's off limits. We just need to work on a way to do it. So take a moment right now, answer this one question. Is there any way, even if you're not sure, you can say, I think I'm okay, but I think there's this one word. That's fine. We can talk about that. So take a moment, answer that question. And we're going to go on to another idea. So here's an idea of biased data. Now, for research, ethically, we want to make sure we do things by the book. And sometimes, even though we mean well, we're not doing things the right way. So if you're using data to drive your research, it is important to understand your unrealized biasness. Okay? You mean well, but you're not actually realizing how biased you are. So here's an example. Let's imagine you look at income versus age. So you talk to 100 random people and you say, can I ask you 2 questions for a project? Can you share how old are you? And can you share your yearly salary? Those are the 2 questions. Straightforward. Once again, you don't have to go into detail. You could just say, I'm a high school student for a project. Don't have to give them detail. Can I ask you 2 questions? What is your age? How much money do you make a year? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, very straightforward. But I'm going to focus on the 100 random people. So 100 random people outside Wegmans is different than 100 random people outside Walmart. It just is. Like the people that go to Wegmans are a different clientele than the people that go to Walmart. For the most part, that's not going to always be true. But if you're going to talk about Wegmans, where the average product price is higher than Walmart, where the prices are generally lower, and you're asking them about salary, without taking too much of a guess, I'm going to say if you interviewed 100 people outside Wegmans, they're going to be making more money yearly average than 100 random people outside Walmart. It seems unbiased, but in actuality, because of the data we're looking at, it's biased. By going to Wegmans, I'm putting myself in a position where I am unfairly moving the scale from one side to another. Another example of this is you go to a train station. 100 random people that you talk to outside a train station on Tuesday morning rush hour. So if people are going on the train Tuesday morning during rush hour, that is most likely because they're going to somewhere to work. They're working commuters. Whereas if you go to the train station on a Saturday night, it's not going to be your typical businessmen and women who are using the train on a Saturday night. You're talking about recreational people then. There's probably a difference, maybe not a big difference, but there probably is a difference for people who take the train to work somewhere, most likely, and people who are taking the train for recreational use. It may not be a big difference, but there can be a difference about that. So you got to be careful about that. So how can we really work with this? Without realizing it, your random group data isn't so random, and we can actually use that. So here we have an option, acknowledge it. In your research, you can say, okay, I went to this one location multiple times over the week to get a true random sense. So in your research, you can say, okay, I'm interviewing 100 people 8 times. So really, your random group can be 800 people, 100 at a time over a given time period at the same location or varying locations to get a randomized data set. So once again, you just got to acknowledge it and plan for it. Okay, I know I'm going to have to go to these 5 places, and I'm going to do 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, 1 at night, 1 on the weekend, 1 during the workday after school. Just plan for it, and that's perfectly fine. Also, if you collect random data for people outside Wegmans, go back to the same Wegmans. Very straightforward. Once again, if you go back multiple days at the same location, the clientele is going to be different. And there's a chance that you're going to see the same person or two if you go the same day. But by going outside the Wegmans constantly, you're reducing the randomness of your data. Okay, so those are some things to help you with biasness. This leads to our last question, or a second question. Is there any concern about the biased data in your research? Once again, it's okay if there is, we just need to find a way to work around it. So were you going to interview teachers? Okay, are you only interviewing high school teachers? Okay, are you only interviewing high school teachers in North Brunswick? Can you get in touch with a teacher in, Spotswood or Jamesburg or, New Brunswick? Does that matter? You need to think about it. Am I going to interview teachers here in my school Well, that may be a little biased just because we all work in North Brunswick. So just be careful about that. So take a moment to answer this question. And then we're going to go on to our third topic, protecting yourself. So there are multiple ways you can protect yourself from asking people personal questions. The most obvious is never ask for your names during your information. So let's say you interview 20 teachers. You can have two options. This is generally two options here. Use a Google form to collect survey data, or you sit down with them during a prep period whenever you schedule it, and actually do interviews, long form interviews, which is a perfectly acceptable research method, long form interviews. So if you're going to give them a Google form, for the record, don't ask them for their name. On the survey, make sure that there's nothing linked to their, don't take their email addresses. Don't say, oh, what classroom do you teach in? Information like that will put yourselves in a situation where maybe, let's just say, a good way to describe this is they answer something that maybe cancels them. Like I mentioned before about the whole legality thing. You don't want to put yourself in a position where now Mr. Neller is asking you, which teacher was this? Because all of a sudden, now you're going to be like, you're getting yourself into trouble there. Way around that, you can ask for demographic or subject information, and you can use this to establish that you have a varied sample or that you have no varied sample. So, for example, let's just say you interview only science teachers. Great. Or you can interview truly random teachers. And then by protecting yourself here, you're just going to protect yourself going forward from having to put names to answers. Option 2 is for the interviews. So let's just say you sit down with your teacher and you have a 10-minute conversation with them. A 10-minute conversation is probably hard for you to write down. So my recommendation is use your phone or a computer and do a voice memo. And just say to the teacher when you interview, hi, I'm doing a presentation I'm doing a research for AP Research. I am looking into this topic. Is it okay if we record this conversation for protection? Yes. Okay. And if they say no, say, all right, then thank you for your time. And thank them for the time. The whole idea about recording is that it makes sure that you understand what the conversation was and that you can replay it and type up the information. And it also protects you in case something is said inappropriately. The same reason why teachers had to record Google Meets is the same reason why you should record long-form interviews with people like teachers and other people you don't know, just random people. So my last question for you folks, if you plan to talk to people in any capacity for data collection, mentors are different. But if you're planning to talk to people for data collection, do you have a plan in place to keep information confidential? Okay, so answer these 3 questions and we will eventually look at your paper for an internal review board and see if we really need to go in detail with a lot of these things. So thank you for listening. Please answer these 3 questions and we'll